But
sometimes you do get guilty of like following the inspiration and something hits you, a funny idea or something, and I throw up a green screen, I put on some wigs and crazy ridiculous things and make something that I think is good because I just follow that initial passion. But you can't let that be the regular thing, otherwise, you'll just drown.
And you need systems like in place to do anything like efficiently, right?
Yeah.
So let's go back to the cousins in the classroom bit about those Zoom things. I mean, we've all had to do things on Zoom this year, for music, creation. Have you found any like specific things that have helped your workflow on Zoom? Any like tips that you'd want to tell the audience?
My workflow on Zoom, I would say I have, we've all been on the quest to figure out how to get audio sounding better on Zoom in real time. The audience can't see it because I'm speaking, but you need I found some good YouTube links. Maybe you can put it in the description, but some people who've really mastered what exactly you need to get Zoom sounding good. The problem is I'm not sure if the issue is internet speed as opposed to actually the right interface or connectivity. Because I think a lot of the Zoom issues that people have is that warping, compression, and terrible resolution has to do with how your internet is. From my understanding, you really need good upload speed, not just download speed, but really good upload speed. If you have an Ethernet connection, from my understanding, it's better. But using, let me think, a mixer that goes into an interface, I find like a Focusrite, right? Like a little Focusrite here. Let's say for an iPhone, if you're doing a Zoom onto an iPhone or something like that, what I find has worked is that a Focusrite interface can go right into a USB to Lightning port adapter, and that can go right into your phone. And then whatever you plug into the interface, you have multiple ways to gain stage, and you want that so that you can actually hear it when you're performing it and the audience can hear it. So just to be clear, like whatever you're working in, if you have a mixer, take the output of the mixer, put it into the inputs of an interface, and then connect the interface directly to either your phone or your computer where you're streaming into.
Right, because you get only inputs 1 and 2 work on Zoom.
Right. So you want the outputs of whatever get a mix that's good into a mixing board that you like. And then you just want to take that mix stereo into something. So into an interface and then into either a computer via USB or into an iPhone or whatever via whatever connection, like adapter you need to get it into there. And I started doing like TikTok lives. You can live stream on TikTok. And when I did that, people were like, whoa, it sounds great. Like sounds awesome because you can really hear everything crisp. The mix is there, it's done, and it goes out into your interface. And then what's good is you can actually make it louder in your headphones, but if it's getting too loud for them, you can actually turn it down on the inputs of the interface itself. Right. So you have that kind of control, because sometimes if you want it to be, if it's clipping for them and crazy and you bring it down, you can barely hear it in whatever headphones you're using or monitor mix you're using. So there's all those kinds of issues. But I have found, just to reiterate, get everything into some kind of mixer, take the outputs of that into the inputs of an interface, and then interface into the computer. And make sure you select for Zoom that the input is that interface that you're using, and you should be good to go.
Yeah, and how do you keep the communication smooth when you're like making a song over Zoom? Like, I feel like that's the most difficult thing. Is like, okay, how do you like actually communicate? This is what needs to happen next with the person who's like in a completely different place.
Oh, when we're doing the workshop, you're saying specifically?
Yeah,
the workshop is cool because we have everybody. I mean, basically, most of songwriting we've identified through the workshop isn't like sitting there coming up with the melody and the hook yet. It takes a lot of first getting to an authentic place. So we do a lot of talking about ideas first, people generating ideas and concepts. We've kind of formulated it to that we give a presentation and then people go into breakout rooms, and in those breakout rooms we jot down all the ideas discussed in the form of keywords. So if the way we're talking, I write talking about different ideas that come to mind, as we're discussing cool emotional things, emotion, and I'll just jot down all these things. And then we have when we all come back to the Zoom call, we have this word cloud of ideas, right? And then the three of us help guide the songwriting process, taking different roles, where I'll start producing a track, Dov will start forming lyrics, David will start coming up with some chord and harmony ideas. And then after you've done all of that legwork, building a foundation, some of those ideas just come pretty easy. It's like we've developed a system by which the actual songwriting process has very little resistance. Things can just come pretty easily because we have such a bed of ideas to pull from. So it's just
you've been doing it for so long together also.
We've been doing it for such a long time together, but then like as opposed to just sitting down and saying, what do we write about? We make sure to set it up in a way that that there's this just a well of material that we know to pull from, that we've all discussed, so it comes from a real place. And then we have the chat feature so that with Zoom and muting, people can start jotting down lyric ideas and phrases, and it starts to just kind of build in real time very quickly.
Well, are you in the same room with the other guys in Distant Cousin, or are you guys each on your own Zoom separately?
We're all in the same Zoom, but you can do breakout rooms in Zoom where you go to separate rooms temporarily and come back to the main room. So we each split up and help guide different groups. Sometimes, we've done it with groups as big as 90 people. We do it with groups of 20 people. A quick note for bands out there also, outside of this workshop, we had a really interesting session where I was able to share my computer sound and my screen, and we could all watch one of my sessions on my computer together, and everybody could hear it pretty clearly through Zoom, so that we finished off a mix of one of our songs because it was getting frustrating to, bounce a mix, send it to the guys, get notes, do it again, come back, do it again. We've all been there. But this way we were able to, in real time, like, hey, I love that. Can we do that? Try this arrangement. And we were able to have a virtual session via Zoom, and it worked pretty smoothly. So the next the next goal I want is to be able to, I know you can do this, and I know there are software recordings, I've heard about it, but maybe you know the answer, of having somebody record remotely where they are and have their audio show up in my DAW in real time without latency.
I think there is one. I know there's audio movers.
Audio movers, that's the one.
They do. That's like a higher, like a more HD, stream than than like a Zoom audio. Mm-hmm. Like you get a much better stream from the DAW. I think it's like Wave even.
Yeah.
But I don't know if there is one that you could track it like that, but I'm not sure what it is. It could be. I think most people are tracking on the artist's computer and then maybe using something like TeamViewer to control their DAW.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards,
I'm sure someone has cracked it.
Up.
I'm trying to figure out what that is, because that would be amazing if I could like run a session and have it all end up in one session. Everybody tracking.
I heard Jacob Collier talking about how he would when he was working with Ty Dolla $ign, he like installed Logic on his computer and tracked his whole vocals with TeamViewer or something from a distance over Zoom.
Lovely with Ty Dolla $ign. We've been able to do it. Yeah. So I just layer, and I basically hear it in the wind. There's actually major chords in the wind. It's beautiful. It's lovely.
So good. The guy's a genius.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the only guy who's cracked the code of doing a live stream concert in real time with like a person in a different room, because he just he hears the latency. He knows what the latency is going to be, and he performs accordingly because his brain is that good.
I did hear that. He's like, no, it's actually 4 milliseconds later, so I'm just going to go a quarter beat later. I'm going to start my song while you start yours, and apparently it's in time. And I'm like, what on earth? I mean, no human being. No normal.
He's the only one that could do that.
But he can do it. Is that in fact, he's actually playing everything off one beat and it lines up?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that. You could do that.
He did that with Chris Martin. I could send you the video. I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, put it in. It's just ridiculous. I mean, yeah, for non-alien people who don't have superpowers, there are ways to do it. They haven't figured out a way to live stream simultaneous though. Everyone at the same time.
Right. It's a lie. Everyone's just tracking on a guide track.
No, but I just mean if that could be a thing you could figure out, where like the software somehow has a latency compensation where we all it can trick everybody into hearing it at the right time. That would be an amazing thing. But Zoom has yet to crack it, and there hasn't been I don't have any thoughts, any ideas as to what's out there that could do that, where 3 people in 3 different locations can perform for people and it all come out at the same time. So
I don't think it could, because there's always going to be one track that's like the starting track that's going to have latency of the internet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would imagine it would have to be that there is latency, but then the software discovers where it is and moves everybody back to the final mix so that to you hear it all. I don't know. Yeah, technically, my brain hits a wall.
Maybe
my brain hits a wall.
Somebody smarter than us come up with a solution for everyone.
Yep.
So we when we had a chat recently, we were talking about sync, and I wanted to ask you what is hip for sync these days in terms of like genres. Like, what are people that are looking to sign something over for a commercial or a movie? Like, what are they looking for these days?
Yeah, that's
hitting 2021.
Yeah, I think that's become a harder question because I think for a while, from my observations, there was that indie, folk, claps, ukuleles kind of style that was everywhere. But music genres have really expanded even more than they used to. For a long time, like, in the 90s and whatnot, like certain genres just dominated what was pop music. And that all changed, obviously, as the years went on into the 2000s and stuff, and like whatever became the popular music began to diversify genre-wise. You had folk, you had indie, you had, hip hop. I think, I don't know. My perspective on sync stuff has changed a little bit, where at one point I was sort of chasing whatever that was hot for sync. But I think ultimately sync is looking for awesome tunes that I think hit certain markers, but genre-wise, I wouldn't necessarily be too specific, because if you divide it up into general broad categories like songwriting, vibe, and maybe production in general, but
instrumentation maybe.
Yeah, instrumentation. Like there's the writing part of it where certain ideas work really well. Ideas about being unique or celebrating or being, something new, something fresh. Like in the advertising world, I would say a lot of that is like, I hear a lot of stuff about, if you listen to bands like Danger Twins, who get a lot of sync stuff, check out Danger Twins. They have a song, whenever there's stuff like Back to School, like look at me now, whatever, I'm making that up. But like anything about new beginnings, things about, restart, refresh, things like those kinds of lyrical ideas I've heard a lot. But at the same time, in trailer music and stuff, it's all can be totally emotional and dark and edgy. So I used to have a more clear answer on this, and now I can give you sort of the dry industry answer. It's like, look, do some punchy ass 80s retro kind of throwback 90s stuff with good vibe and a catchy hook, and you'll be fine. That's a good ways to go strategically. On the darker side, if you go more lush, pad, cinematic, dark, edgy, or do even smartly like covers of songs, but in a new interpretation, like a cinematic version of a pop song, with crazy cool lush pads that you see working in a trailer that can complement a specific scene. That I've seen a bunch. And then like look up, stay attuned to like what's out there that you like punchy indie pop stuff, Hyman, stuff on TikTok. I mean, oftentimes sync stuff is just chasing what's popular. So I would just say trying to be conscious of like what's out there in what you're aiming for a specific area. Like there are certain things that work. I'm being really vague here because I'm not finding the right answers.
It's interesting. Would you say that a valid answer for somebody who wants to get into sync would be to just be true to themselves, make the best music they possibly can make, and then maybe get it synced? Or is it more of, I want to make sync music, let me do some research, what's hip, and try to make something that is cool and in that vague? You know what I mean? Are you doubling down on yourself, or are you doubling down on the industry? Like, I guess does that make sense?
Great question. I think it's a little dangerous to say, just make whatever you make and then hope it gets synced. Because sometimes if whatever it is you make is in a specific style, then yeah, that could work. But there are people who want to just do metal, and that's all well and good. If you want to make, prog rock metal, Liquid Tension Experiment, Dream Theater, or even real crazy speed metal, if that's your vibe, go for it and do it and find an audience for it. Because now with TikTok and these platforms, you have as good a shot as any, if not more, to like find an audience that likes that stuff. But I don't hear so much metal in sync. You're not going to see a Macy's commercial or a Google ad campaign where you hear metal songs. So if you're a metal player and that's the music you want to make, fine. If you want to try to explore other things, listen to some ad music and see what it's about and see if you vibe with it. I mean, don't try to pretend. Do what you can do, or try to find a way to bring your style to that style and find a cool marriage between them.
It sounds like what you're saying is maybe like even double down on yourself, but within a popular genre, within like the scope of what